G'day and welcome, JJ here. Apologies for last week's hiatus. We took the kids to Queenstown for a little bit of a ski. Well, they went skiing and I stayed back and babysat the twins. But nevertheless, it was good fun. We did miss a bit of footy though, so good to be back. Round 24 is in the books. The finals, the real season, as they say, is locked and loaded. The others, it's team meetings, exit meetings, clean out the locker, book your holidays, off you go. And also, speaking of exit meetings, I just want to give a little bit of insight into how an exit meeting takes place, what happens, what gets said, and what that looks like for those who perhaps have never been in an exit meeting, particularly in an AFL club. You may have been in one at your local workplace, but AFL exit meetings are, I guess, one part nonsense and chit chat, and one part seriousness where you focus on what you need to do for next season. But as I said, the finals are set. We've got a Sydney derby, formerly Battle of the Bridge, Battle for the Bridge, but I've been told that that's not what they want to call it anymore. The Sydney Showdown. I know the Showdown is used in Adelaide, but they don't own it. The Sydney Showdown's a good one. And that's a qualifying final. Sydney and the Giants, can't wait for that. The number one seeded Swannies, the little brothers, the Giants. On the other side of the draw in the top four, Port Adelaide. What a win that was from them against Fremantle with close enough to nothing to play for. They got the job done, locked up second spot. They'll host the Cats. Of course, we saw that contest way back when in 2021, where the Power got the job done over the wayward and inaccurate Cats. The winner of that game, of course, gets a home prelim in a fortnight's time. And then the eliminators, and these are the interesting ones. Carlton, yeah, the baggers are in. Carlton are in, and they'll go back to Vegas to face and tackle the Lions. Now, quarter time in last year's prelim final, Carlton fans were just starting to fire up Ticket Tech and look for a grand final ticket, but unfortunately the Lions rallied and in the end stomped on the Blues. So we'll get that as a big-time clash, an elimination final between Carlton and the Lions. And then maybe the most exciting game for neutral fans, certainly. And they tell me this game's all but sold out already. Hawthorn and the Dogs at the MCG. Going to be unbelievable. The Dogs have been terrible at times and unbelievable at other times. And the Hawks are here despite starting the season at 0-5. So Sydney versus the Giants, Port v Geelong, Brisbane v Carlton, and Hawthorn v the Western Bulldogs. The countdown is absolutely on. For those who have been left behind, and I'm talking about the reigning premier in Collingwood, Fremantle, who dropped 4 straight to miss the finals, Essendon, who was second on the AFL ladder not that long ago, the Saints, who played Grinch quite well, but left it all till the bird had flown the coop. Gold Coast, who are still yet to play finals in their history. Melbourne, who, blimey, what a situation that is. Adelaide, perhaps the disappointment of the season. West Coast, who need a new coach. North Melbourne, who grew a lot and then finished off dismally. And Richmond, who are now absolutely feeling the effects or the after effects of a dynasty and the hangover from that. And they win an unlikely wooden spoon. Unlikely to some, not unlikely to others. Now, a quick word on those 10 teams who are done before talk to you about exit meetings. And, of course, the Melbourne situation. We have to talk about Christian Petrarca and what on earth is going on at Demon Land. Collingwood, will start there. The coach has said a few times publicly now that the group returned from the premiership fit to play but not fit to perform, or at least he had a question on it, and that's telling, I think. So certainly you'd expect the Pies to turn up in ripping shape. They are going to take all of their 30-pluses, and there's about 9 of them in the season 2025. Do you still believe they're in the window, Pies fans? Or have they made arguably the biggest mistake you can make in footy, and that's going a year too long? If you go one season too long with a group that can't get you there, you set yourself up for big-time failure and big-time pain in the future. Fremantle, I mentioned they dropped 4 straight to fall through the cracks, to absolutely fall through the trapdoor. They were more so looking at a home qualifying final than missing the finals altogether a month ago. But after an excellent 2022, it's now back-to-back seasons where the results have not been pleasing to Fremantle fans, and the questions will be there in 2025. So they re-signed Justin Longmuir to put these questions to bed. Well, guess what? They're in the exact same situation. He is going into season 2025 with an expiring contract and a questionable game style and a questionable place as the coach of Fremantle, to put it bluntly, because they didn't get it done. Essendon, 11th in 2023, 11th in 2024. It's hard to know what to make of this mob. Things have looked so good and have felt so different, but ultimately you are what your record says you are. And they are, again, also Rans. St Kilda, the Saints, they end the season 6-4 from their past 10, which is good because part of those 6 wins, Sydney, Carlton, and the Cats. So 3 of those 6 wins, sensational. But it's a pity because everything before that was so hard to watch. So hard to watch. Ross, you got to release the shackles and let them boys play. Gold Coast, the pressure mounted and continued to mount all season long. Eventually it found them out. I do believe, and I've said this on radio, I believe in Damien Hardwick's assessment that 80% of a premiership team is there and in place. But I still think 2026 is when we'll see the best version of the Gold Coast Suns. I haven't got that many aging stars, Collins, Witts. But apart from that, they are absolutely in the window from about 2026, maybe even next year. Adelaide, everything's on the table for the Crows. Any type of poor beginning to season 25, and the coach will be under immense scrutiny. Simple as that. 11 wins last year and should have been in the finals, but ultimately weren't. Back to 8.5 wins. So a significant decrease in wins. And certainly the way they played was so ugly, so dour in the first part of the season. West Coast, Adam Simpson departs. Almost all candidates say, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. So Jared Schofield's either last man standing or he was the one they wanted all along. 5 wins was about where I had them, in fairness, as well. 2 to go. North Melbourne, at the end of the day, for all the promise and excitement, 3 wins from 23 games is another hopeless season. I reckon they've got 6 or 7 genuine franchise-type stars. So, and I might miss 1 or 2, but Wardlaw, Sheasel, Davies-Uniacke, Larkey, Comben, maybe Cherry in the ruck, maybe Zerha. So let's give them about 7 guys who can really catapult them forward. But they've definitely got 12 to 15 players who either are not up to it in terms of performing at an AFL standard each and every week, or lucky to be on a list, to be honest. Richmond, 2-21, tough season for them. They did beat Sydney way back when, if you can believe that. Grimes goes, Pickett goes, Dustin Martin, of course, is gone. Liam Baker, Daniel Rioli, Jack Graham considering his options. Shea Bolton wants to leave. And now Tom Lynch's name keeps coming up. It's hard to imagine things might get worse for Richmond in 2025 than they were this year. But if all or most of those names depart the club, then 2025 could be an absolute shocker. Now, I promised we'd move along to exit meetings at AFL clubs. I'm sure you've heard the term when a team finishes up, and most likely when, you know, the teams who don't make the finals all finish up at once, you hear, you know, we'll get the players in, we'll have a few chats, we'll have their exit meetings, and off they'll go. What actually happens in an exit meeting? What I can tell you is a season is incredibly long. It's monotonous. It's a very rigorous process where you're fixated on day by day. You're fixated on your next opponent, your next game, then reviewing that game for 48 hours, recovering your body, training in the middle part of the week, and then preparing for the next game. You're never really ever thinking about, okay, what does it look like when the season ends? Because the only time you're really thinking about the season ending is the hope of lifting the Premiership Cup. And when you lift the Premiership Cup, who cares what the exit meetings look like? So even when you know for 3 or 4 weeks or 5 or 6 weeks that your season's going to end, at the end of the regular season, you still don't really put that much time into the exit strategy of the footy club. Now, let's take Adelaide, for example. Of course, I played for them, so it's probably the easiest example to use. They played against Sydney on Saturday night in Sydney. They would have had a few quiet beers at the hotel. I doubt they would have been allowed to leave the hotel on that night. Only bad things can happen if they do. They travel home Sunday. They would have got home around, lunchtime or just a bit after on Sunday. They would have been told, go home, do whatever you want Sunday afternoon, go and see your family and friends and whatever. But Monday morning, come in, don't be hungover because we've got some meetings and we've got some discussions to have on the back of a disappointing season, I might add. So Monday morning comes around, your individual exit meetings are assigned. They're usually 20-minute blocks. Some extend out significantly. Sometimes you might only be in there for 10 minutes. And in those meetings, from experience, you've got your positional coach. So, your forward coach, you might have, or you would have the head of fitness, or at least someone from the fitness department. You probably have, depending on your status in the club, the football manager, and maybe, or definitely the head coach, I should say. And there may be one or two other people, depending on where you sit in the club, and I guess depending on what they've got on their plate at the time. So I remember going in at different stages thinking, lay low, smile, nod, wave goodbye, off you go, tell them you're going to do everything you can to be super fit next year. And then other times I remember going in and probably at the back of better performed seasons personally saying, I want to address this. This is my opportunity to say, let's think about changing this. Let's think about changing that and see what you get. So generally speaking, the fitness coach will go first. They'll give you a detailed rundown on how much training you completed across the preseason and the season. They will, talk to you about games missed through injury or illness or whatever it may look like. And then they'll talk about, a snapshot into next season, what they'd like from you for next season. Do they want you to lose some weight? Do they want you to get stronger? Do they want you to run more, to build your endurance, to build your power, whatever it may be? And they'll tell you that they've got a plan in place for you to do one of those things or all of those things. And therefore, you've got to action that plan in the off season. Then your positional coach is probably the softest ear or the softest voice in the room. They'll, typically say, I had a great time working with you. We improved a lot and we did this, that, and the other. For the positional coaches, you've often got a really close personal relationship with them, so you can understand why they are a bit of a softer ear and certainly a softer voice. And then the head coach and the footy manager can sometimes be a bit more forceful, depending on how the season's played itself out. The head coach might say, we need more in this space. We need you to improve or address this part of your game in the preseason. You've got 3 or 4 months to do that and to focus on that and to take that into next season. If you want to go from being a good player to a very good player, this is what you need to do. Your fitness might not be up to it. Your mental attitude or aptitude or application mightn't be up to it, whatever it may be. Certainly the head coach is the one who probably needs to drop the hammer if it needs to be dropped. And then the footy manager or the football boss, and I had David Noble, Brett Burton, and then Simon Lloyd at Geelong. They'll talk about what you can bring to the table from a leadership perspective or where you sit in the club, your influence, all those types of things as well. So it's a wide-ranging conversation. You certainly get your chance to have your say, but for the most part, you go in, you listen to all. You're better off to nod, smile, and walk out and keep your head held high. But occasionally they can be forthright. Certainly, you hear about players who go in and request a trade in that specific meeting. I don't necessarily think that's the best way to go about it. I think perhaps if you're going to request a trade, you might want to have some support with you, because you go into the exit meeting on your own. No one goes in with you. No management goes with you. No family or whatever goes in with you. So it's an interesting situation. And from that moment, you'll then have a team meeting in the afternoon, probably, or maybe on the Tuesday, once all the other exit meetings for players are completed. And you will see all these stats on the season. This is where we were good. This is where we were poor. This is where we need to get better. This is what we're going to focus on next year. We've got players leaving, coaches leaving, staff leaving, whatever it may be. We'll bring some new players in. So It's long, it's lengthy. Certainly don't advise doing it if you're hungover for young players or for any players who might be considering it at this time of year. So that's what an exit meeting looks like. I've had plenty of good ones, plenty of annoying ones, plenty of useless ones, but certainly that's how they play themselves out. Now, Petrarca, Christian Petrarca. I'm already looking forward. I'm locked in to do the AFL trade radio with a couple of the gurus. I won't mention their names because I think they'd like to do a bit of an announcement on all of that. But I can't wait. I did it last year with Phil Davis and Damien Barrett, and it was busy enough without being explosive. Well, this year's trade period feels explosive, and some of the names that you've already read, there's some big time players. Christian Petrarca is at the head of that list. Now, in his situation and in Melbourne's situation, it just seems like two parties who have got their backs up against the wall and neither has been willing to take a step forward and extend a handshake or an olive branch at all. Now, Petrarca clearly feels aggrieved about probably the medical situation. And now I'm reading from afar. I've got no contact with Christian Petrarca or his gang at all. But it sounds like he's a bit aggrieved with that. He's a bit aggrieved with some of the cultural standards that have slipped at Melbourne. And Melbourne are a bit annoyed about some of the things Christian does that may not fit into that team first category. We heard Adelaide nonsensically talk about team first and Josh Rochelle. Well, it feels similar with Christian Petrarca. The only problem is Christian Petrarca is as good as we've got in the competition. Now, the brand Petrarca stuff is the part that's exploded because it's the part that the haters can latch onto the easiest and taint him about the most. But it's also one that's a little bit left of center and a little bit new for us. In the States, each individual athlete is their own brand, and they don't consult the club if they want to go and do a media appearance or they want to go and do a paid appearance. They don't consult clubs. They just go and do it. Whereas here, it's a consultation process. Generally, the media organisation will go through the club to get to the player or go through the player agent who will ask the club and then the player. So it's a completely different situation. But Petrarca and his partner, I believe, run their own commercial stuff without too much interference or too much consultation. And I think some of that stuff is what potentially has irked his teammates. And it's okay. Well, you're injured and we feel for you, but we're seeing all these videos pop up and you look like you're feeling pretty good about yourself and you look like you're feeling pretty happy, but you're not showing us a lot of love. Now, this is where I think the two parties have pushed themselves up against two brick walls and refused to come forward and meet in the middle. So Christian feels how he feels, and he's the individual against the mass or the masses. And the club at no point thought to communicate and say, hey, Christian, maybe get a bit more involved with the club, maybe get a bit more involved with the boys. I understand you're up north and you're looking after yourself and respect that, and we hope all is going well. But reach out to Max. Reach out to some of the young guys who might be playing their first game or the 50th game or whatever it may be. Now, it sounds like none of that sort of stuff has happened. And it sounds like we're getting very, very close to or have already reached the point where he ain't coming back and he don't want to go back. All the reports about awkwardness at Wacky Wednesday and awkwardness at social functions sounds like he ain't coming back. It sounds like he's about done. Now, I can remember going to a function where I knew I was leaving. My teammates probably knew I was leaving. But I wasn't leaving the footy club because I didn't like or get on with my teammates. I was able to be at the function. And certainly there are a couple of tables that I was dodging for sure, but I wasn't dodging my teammates. It sounds like he's having to dodge his teammates and they are dodging him deliberately. And there are a few influential types who aren't keen on his presence at the footy club. So it's ugly. And I'll tell you what, if it continues to play on and play itself out, make sure you tune into Trade Period because it's going to be absolutely explosive. Now, before I get out of here, and apologies, it's been a long one, but I did miss last week. All Australian, I've had to go at picking mine because it's good fun. Congrats to those who got in the squad. I saw big, bad Wayne Carey said the squad's useless. It means nothing. Well, for some people, being named in an All-Australian squad will be their greatest ever individual accolade. So it does mean something to some people, at least that's my opinion. Now, I'll read out my team. From the back line, Nick Blakey of the Swans, Jeremy McGovern again, and Dane Zorko. What a move to defence that has been. Halfbacks, Lockie Whitfield of the Giants, Harris Andrews of Brisbane, and Harry Sheasel on a halfback flank for me. Across the middle, Errol Goulden and Massimo D'Ambrosio on the wings. Congrats to Massimo if he indeed does make the team. Nick Dacos in the middle. Half forwards, Brent Daniels, who just signed a big-time deal to stay at the Giants. Jeremy Cameron, who exploded late in the season to make the team. Chad Warner on a half-forward flank. Tyson Stengel in the pocket. Dylan Moore in the other pocket. And Jesse Hogan, the Coleman medalist, at full forward. In the ruck, Rowan Marshall for mine. I know he didn't make the squad, but this is my team. Marcus Bontempelli and Patrick Cripps on the bench. Lockie Neal, the two-time Brownlow medalist. Isaac Heaney, can you believe it, the season he's had? He has not made the team. Toby Green, go and check the numbers. He didn't make the squad. Go and check the numbers. He makes it, as does his teammate Tom Green. So that's my team. I make no excuses for it. Incredibly hard to fit the midfielders in. Zach Butters, I wanted to fit in. There are a few other guys I wanted to fit in, just simply couldn't get it done. It's very, very hard job. It's easy to slap, easy to whack, and easy to criticise, but have a go at your own before you do. All right, that's all she wrote. The regular season is done. The finals are here. This time next week, or perhaps earlier in the week, a big preview. Sydney, Carlton, Port Adelaide, Western Bulldogs, Geelong, Hawthorn, Greater Western Sydney, and Brisbane. They're the teams fighting it out for the flag in 2024. We'll all find out who wins together. Thanks for watching, and make sure you check out the NFL season preview as well. It's on the same YouTube channel as this show. A bit of a fantasy football preview and a season preview. A few tips and a few predictions as well. Maybe make a few bucks in the NFL because that season starts real soon. Thanks for watching, and I'm out.